What if everything you believe about talent, intelligence, and success is completely wrong? What if I told you that the difference between people who succeed wildly and those who stay stuck isn't talent, luck, or even hard work, but a single belief they carry in their mind? Right now, somewhere in the world, two people are facing failure. One of them is about to give up forever. The other is about to unlock a level of success they never imagined. Same failure, completely different futures. Why? Because of something called mindset. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. In today's episode, we dive into a powerful idea from mindset, the new psychology of success that could change the way you think about your abilities, your goals, and even your limits. So before you decide what you can't do, you might want to hear this.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, all. Welcome to BookPodCastZone. I'm your host, Emma.
And I'm John.
And we have a truly just a transformative mission ahead of us today. We are going to be unpacking a pretty comprehensive 8-chapter guide.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It really is. It was originally designed as this sort of, mindset shift journey. And it explores these profound, deeply rooted concepts of fixed versus growth mindsets.
Right.
And before we get into it, I just want to speak directly to you, the listener, for a second, because this is not just some abstract academic theory that you just listen to on your commute and then immediately forget about.
Exactly. No, it's way more practical than that.
Right. This is the underlying operating system of your life. It dictates, well, basically how you handle setbacks in your career, how you approach your hobbies, and, even how you navigate your relationships in today's insanely fast-paced world.
Yeah, and we are living in an era where everything is just constantly shifting beneath our feet. I mean, entire industries are being rewritten almost overnight.
Oh, absolutely. So the way you perceive your own capacity to adapt is quite literally the only thing tethering you to long-term fulfillment. So let's just start by looking at the foundation. Chapter 1. Are you stuck or are you growing? What is the fundamental psychological architecture that separates these two mindsets?
Well, when you look at the cognitive science behind it, the difference is really stark. I mean, it fundamentally alters how you process reality. It basically comes down to your implicit theory of intelligence and character.
Okay, break that down for me. Implicit theory.
Yeah, so if you operate with a fixed mindset, you believe your traits are just carved in stone. Like you view yourself as a finished product right out of the box.
Right, like you're just born with what you have.
Exactly. You are dealt a certain hand of genetic cards at birth. So, a certain IQ, a certain personality, a certain level of, creative talent. And because of that, your entire life just becomes a performance to prove to the world that you hold a winning hand.
Oh, wow. So you're constantly on trial.
Yes. You have to look smart at all costs. And crucially, you must avoid looking foolish. But on the flip side, if you operate with a growth mindset, you believe those basic qualities are just the starting point.
Like a baseline.
Right, a baseline.
Yeah.
Because they're neuroplastic. So with dedication, active strategy, and a willingness to learn from others, those traits can actually be developed. You aren't a finished product at all. You're a continuous work in progress.
So it's basically the difference between viewing your life as this final exam where every single move is graded versus viewing it as a laboratory where every move is simply an experiment.
Yeah, the perfect way to put it, yeah.
But how does that play out when things actually go wrong? Let's say two people experience the exact same failure. Why is the reaction so radically different?
Well, it all comes down to identity versus data.
Identity versus data.
Yeah. Let's take a common scenario, right?
Yep.
Imagine an adult trying to learn a highly technical new skill today, like coding in Python, or, even something creative like learning to play the piano. If you have a fixed mindset and you sit down to write your first script or play your first scale and you fail miserably, which you will because you're a beginner, your brain processes that failure as an existential threat.
Wait, an existential threat, like danger.
Exactly. Because the internal monologue is, I failed at this, therefore I lack the innate talent, therefore I am not smart. The failure attaches itself directly to your identity.
Oh, man.
Yeah, your amygdala actually fires up and it creates genuine emotional distress.
That is so intense, but in a growth mindset.
In a growth mindset, the ego just isn't on the line. The failure is completely separated from your identity. It's just external data. So the internal monologue is more like, well, okay, that approach didn't work. I guess I must need a different study method, or, I need to ask a senior developer for advice. The failure is an event that happened to you, not a definition of who you are.
That distinction between identity and data is, that is huge. And it completely explains this totally embarrassing experience I had a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Okay, so I bought this beautiful, incredibly expensive acoustic guitar. I had this whole vision of myself just effortlessly strumming at campfires or just being that cool
Oh,
person.
we've all been there.
Right. So I sat down in my living room for my first YouTube tutorial. And my fingers hurt, the chords sounded muffled, I couldn't transition fast enough, and I immediately felt this intense, just paralyzing wave of shame.
Wow, shame over guitar.
Yes, and I was completely alone. Nobody was even watching me, but I literally put the guitar back in its case and shoved it in the back of my closet for like 3 years. I avoided it entirely because the physical sensation of being a beginner, of not being instantly gifted, it just felt awful.
That right there, that is a perfect illustration of how the fixed mindset paralyzes us.
Yeah.
The cognitive dissonance was just too loud for you.
Yeah, it really was.
Your self-image was, capable, smart adult.
Yeah.
But the data from the guitar was saying incompetent beginner. And instead of tolerating that temporary incompetence to build the skill, your brain chose to protect your self-image by just abandoning the task entirely.
It's just so wild looking back on it.
And if we look at the modern American experience right now in 2026, this dynamic is actually being weaponized against us daily. Social media culture is an absolute accelerant for this fixed mindset thinking. We are constantly inundated with these polished highlight reels that completely hide the friction of learning.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the algorithms just prioritize perfection. You only see the video of the person who has been playing guitar for 10 years, executing an immaculate, flawless solo.
Right. You never see the thousands of hours of them sitting in a messy bedroom sounding terrible and building calluses.
Exactly. We are comparing our messy behind the scenes to everyone else's flawlessly filtered final product.
And we're seeing this profoundly impact the U.S. workforce, too, with the entrenchment of remote and hybrid work. Just think about the psychological theater of modern office communication right now.
Oh, the Slack channels, the Zoom calls.
Yeah. When we were physically together in offices, you could walk past a colleague's desk, and you'd see them looking frustrated, sighing, deleting a spreadsheet, and starting over. You actually saw the struggle.
Right. It was normalized.
But now, working remotely, our interactions are all mediated through screens. We only see the final, perfect presentation our peers submit on Zoom, or the seamlessly written proposal dropped into a Slack channel. We don't see the deleted drafts.
We don't see the backspace key being hit 50 times.
Exactly. Because the struggle is invisible, we assume their success is just the result of effortless, innate talent. And when we sit alone in our home offices and we struggle, we think, there's something wrong with me. I'm just not cut out for this.
Which just creates this epidemic of silent isolation. So, what is the mechanical fix here? If our brains are wired to protect our ego and our environment is literally designed to hide the struggle, how do we intervene?
Well, the intervention actually starts at the level of vocabulary. There is immense scientifically backed power in a simple three-letter word.
A three-letter word.
Yeah, the word is yet.
Oh, yet.
Right. When you encounter a challenge and that automatic voice in your head says, I'm just not good at this,
Yeah.
you have to consciously train yourself to append the word yet. I am not good at this yet.
I mean, I can see the power in that, but let me play devil's advocate for a moment.
Go for it.
If I've been trying to learn a skill like my guitar for 3 years and I still can't do it, isn't adding yet to the end of my sentence just kind of toxic positivity? Like, at what point do we just accept our limitations instead of blindly grinding?
That is a crucial pushback, and it's a very common misunderstanding. The growth mindset is not about blind, repetitive grinding or, just ignoring reality.
Okay, so what is it then?
If you've been trying to learn guitar for 3 years using the exact same flawed method and making zero progress, just saying yet won't magically turn you into Jimi Hendrix.
Right, unfortunately.
The growth mindset isn't just about believing you can improve. It's about actively seeking new strategies. It's saying, I'm not good at this yet, which means my current strategy is failing. I need to hire a teacher, or change my practice schedule, or try a different learning modality.
Oh, I see.
The yet is a bridge to a new approach. It's not a blanket excuse to just keep doing what isn't working.
That makes perfect sense. It's an invitation to pivot, not just to persevere blindly. So for you listening right now, I want you to lean into the power of that word. The next time something feels impossibly hard this week, ask yourself, when this gets difficult, do I think I'm just not good at this? Or can I force myself to say I'm not good at this yet? Just notice how your physical body reacts to that subtle shift. Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates as we continue our journey into Chapter 2, where we redefine effort entirely.
Yes, moving into Chapter 2 and how we perceive effort. This is really where the rubber meets the road. Because if these two mindsets completely rewrite our definition of failure, they also radically alter our relationship with hard work itself.
Right. Because in a fixed mindset, effort is almost treated like a bad word, isn't it? I remember growing up feeling like, if you had to study for hours for a test, you weren't actually the smart kid.
Oh, totally.
The truly smart kids were the ones who didn't even open the textbook and still got an A. Trying hard was almost a sign of a deficit.
That is the absolute most dangerous trap of the fixed mindset. The logic goes like this. If you are truly a genius, or a natural athlete, or a gifted artist, your output should just flow from you effortlessly.
Like magic.
Right. Therefore, having to put in intense, visible effort is a huge red flag. It's basically an admission that you lack the underlying talent. If you have to try hard, you must not be a natural.
So trying hard is literally admitting defeat in that mindset. That sounds exhausting.
It creates a really tragic paradox. We actually see incredibly capable, high-potential individuals who will deliberately stop trying in order to protect their ego.
Wait, they self-sabotage on purpose?
Exactly. They would rather self-sabotage, like procrastinate until the night before a huge presentation or completely refuse to practice a sport because then they have a built-in excuse.
Oh, I only had one night to work on it.
Yes. If they fail, they can say, well, I didn't really try. The failure reflects their lack of effort, not their lack of ability. But if they were to put in maximum agonizing effort and still fail.
Oh, that would shatter their identity.
Precisely. It proves they aren't naturally superior. For the growth mindset, however, effort isn't a threat to your identity at all. Effort is the exact mechanism that creates the ability in the first place.
It's funny, isn't a growth mindset essentially just treating real life like leveling up in a video game?
How do you mean?
Well, think about it. When you are playing a really difficult video game and your character dies against a boss for the 10th time, you don't throw your controller across the room and think, my console is fundamentally broken and I am a worthless human being.
Right, unless you're having a really bad day.
Haha, true. But usually you look at the screen and think, okay, the boss swings left, so my strategy of dodging right didn't work. On my next life, I need to dodge left. You don't take it personally, you just iterate.
The video game analogy is actually incredibly accurate regarding cognitive framing. In game design, failure is literally built into the mechanics. It's the expected method of learning the rules of that virtual world.
Yeah.
The player operates with an inherent growth mindset because the game assumes you will die repeatedly before mastering the level. But in the real world, particularly within the pressure cooker of American hustle culture, we lose that iterative playfulness entirely.
Hustle culture right now in 2026 is wild.
Yeah.
If you look at LinkedIn, there's this immense, just crushing pressure to look like success is not only continuous, but completely effortless.
Oh, LinkedIn is the epicenter of this.
Everyone is branding themselves as a visionary thought leader who naturally innovates before their morning cold plunge. Nobody ever posts about the pitch deck that got rejected 12 times.
No, of course not. And the psychological toll of maintaining that facade is immense.
Yeah.
It inevitably leads to profound burnout.
I can imagine.
If you are trapped in a fixed mindset, you are carrying around this heavy armor of perfectionism every single day. You are terrified that any misstep, any question you ask that reveals you don't know something will expose you as a total fraud.
That sounds like a miserable way to work.
It is. But the growth mindset allows you to take off that armor. It allows you to admit you don't know everything, which ironically makes you vastly more capable of learning what you actually need to know to succeed.
It's the ultimate relief, honestly, to just be allowed to be a work in progress. So for you listening, here is a challenge for your week. Reframe one recent failure, just one. Instead of saying, I'm bad at this, ask yourself, what specific data did I learn from this? And start praising effort rather than natural talent in your own internal monologue. When you do a good job, don't say, wow, I'm so smart. Say, wow, I worked incredibly hard on that. I used a great strategy, and it paid off. Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates as we continue our journey into Chapter 3, where we completely dismantle the myth of natural talent.
Let's do it. Because as we transition into examining achievement in academics, the arts, and our everyday pursuits, we really have to confront society's absolute obsession with the natural gift.
We really do. We love the romanticized story of the artistic genius who just wakes up and paints a masterpiece, or the prodigy who sees math equations floating in the air.
It makes for a great movie script, right?
Oh, totally. We build entire industries around discovering the next big talent, like all those reality TV shows. But you are saying that labeling someone as naturally talented is actually doing them a huge disservice.
Yes, it carries a massive, massive hidden cost. When we tell a child or a student or a young employee that they are a natural, we think we are giving them the ultimate compliment.
Oh,
But psychologically, we are handing them a heavy burden.
how so?
Well, if your entire worth and identity become tied to being the natural, you become terrified of making mistakes. Because a mistake would mean you aren't a natural after all.
Right, you lose the title.
Precisely. And this leads to a highly documented phenomenon where high potential individuals, people who are constantly labeled gifted in elementary school, suddenly plateaued early in life.
Oh, the former gifted kid syndrome?
Exactly. As soon as the material gets genuinely difficult, they stop taking risks. They only engage in tasks they know they can win easily, actively avoiding the hard challenges that are actually required for long-term real growth. They just become paralyzed by the fear of losing their gifted status.
I have to challenge this premise, though, just a little bit. What about actual undeniable prodigies? Like, what about Mozart? Or an athlete who is just fundamentally wired differently?
Sure.
Furthermore, we live in a globalized gig economy right now. Doesn't the modern market essentially demand that we lead with our natural strengths rather than grinding endlessly at our weaknesses? Like, if I am a terrible graphic designer but a naturally gifted writer, shouldn't I just lean into my writing talent and ignore the design stuff?
Okay, so it's a very common misconception
Yeah.
that the growth mindset denies the existence of different starting points. It doesn't.
Okay.
We all have different genetic predispositions and aptitudes. It doesn't claim that anyone can become Mozart just by trying really hard.
Why?
What it proves, however, is that sustained achievement relies entirely on growth.
Sustain achievement.
Right. Even Mozart, who is the ultimate example of a prodigy, practiced obsessively for thousands of hours under the strict tutelage of his father before he produced anything considered a true masterwork. His initial inclination was basically nurtured through relentless, staggering effort.
Okay, so the talent is the seed, but the mindset is the water and the soil.
Exactly. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
And regarding your point about the gig economy,
Okay.
yes, absolutely leverage your strengths. But your strengths will stagnate and become obsolete if you don't apply a growth mindset to them.
Makes sense.
If you rely solely on your natural writing ability, but refuse to learn how to write for new AI-driven search algorithms, or you refuse to accept critical editing feedback because it bruises your ego, well, someone with slightly less initial talent but a relentless drive to adapt will eventually pass you. We see this dynamic constantly in the U.S. side hustle culture right now.
Oh, the classic tortoise and the hare scenario.
Yes.
You see these creators launch a YouTube channel or a new product, and they get their first wave of harsh online criticism in the comments section. Because they have a fixed mindset and believe their idea was naturally brilliant, the criticism just destroys their motivation. They quit after a month.
It happens all the time.
Meanwhile, the creator who maybe wasn't as polished on day one, but who treats every harsh comment as a diagnostic data point to, improve the audio quality or the scripting of their next video, they are the ones who ultimately build the massive audience.
We're seeing an even more profound manifestation of this in education right now, specifically concerning how U.S. students are utilizing AI tools like ChatGPT or large language models.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a huge topic right now. Teachers are completely terrified of ChatGPT. How does mindset dictate AI usage?
Well, the technology itself is neutral, right? But the mindset of the user dictates the outcome entirely. A student operating with a fixed mindset who is terrified of looking dumb or losing their smart kid status will use AI to bypass the struggle entirely.
They just have it write the essay.
Exactly. They will use it to cheat. They will prompt the AI to write the paper, submit it to maintain the illusion of their intelligence, and learn absolutely nothing. The AI just becomes a tool for intellectual atrophy.
Wow, intellectual atrophy, that's a scary thought.
But a student with a growth mindset views AI as an interactive tutor. They use it to break down complex concepts they are struggling with. They ask it to quiz them or to explain quantum physics as if they were a 5-year-old.
I've actually done that.
See, they aren't using the AI to avoid the cognitive struggle. They're using it to make their struggle more efficient and productive.
That is a really brilliant distinction. The tool is identical. The internal operating system of the user determines if it causes stagnation or acceleration. So, what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means you need to consciously audit your vocabulary. Banish the phrase, "I'm just bad at this," from your life entirely. Replace it with, "I'm still learning the mechanics of this." Pick one skill you have been actively avoiding because you thought you didn't have the innate talent for it. Commit to small, consistent practice. 10 minutes a day of just embracing the friction. Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates as we continue our journey into Chapter 4, where we take these concepts out of the classroom and onto the playing field.
Yes, Chapter 4. Moving into the realm of physical performance and competition offers one of the clearest lenses into these mindsets. When we look at sports, we are looking at an arena where society almost exclusively worships the natural.
It's so true. We literally use phrases like, he's a freak of nature, or she was born to run as the highest possible compliments in sports. We assume professional athletes just step onto the field fully formed, blessed by the genetic lottery.
Genetics obviously play a baseline role. You cannot teach a basketball player to be 7 feet tall.
Right, definitely.
But when sports psychologists study true, enduring champions, the ones who don't just flash briefly but dominate for a decade, they completely dismantle the myth that natural physical talent is the sole determinant of success.
So how does a true champion process the world differently than a gifted amateur?
They view setbacks, the agony of intense training, and the fundamental concept of competition through a radically different cognitive framework. In a fixed mindset, an opponent is a massive threat to your ego.
Because if they beat you.
If they beat you, the internal narrative is that they are fundamentally, inherently better than you. Your worth as a person is diminished. But a champion with a growth mindset views a fierce opponent not as a threat, but as a crucial partner in their own development.
A partner? Wait, even when they are trying to absolutely crush you on the court. That requires a massive perspective shift.
It does. But think about it mechanically. A fierce opponent is the only entity capable of fully exposing your weaknesses. They push you to your absolute physiological and strategic limits.
They show you where the holes in your game are.
Exactly. A growth-minded athlete is almost grateful for a devastating loss, because that loss provides a precise, undeniable roadmap of what they need to work on and practice on Monday morning. The loss isn't a judgment on their worth as a human being. It's an incredibly detailed diagnostic report on their current skill level.
It totally reframes the anxiety of competition. It reminds me of when I decided to take up running a couple of years ago.
Running is tough.
It really is, and I am not built like a runner. I have zero natural athletic grace. My first few times out jogging around my neighborhood, I was completely trapped in a fixed mindset. I kept thinking, I look ridiculous, my form is terrible, my neighbors are watching me heave and sweat. I'm just not a runner.
A self-consciousness is real.
I was miserable. The emotional weight was so much worse than the actual physical exhaustion. But then I read an article about focusing on the mechanics of the breath and the physiological adaptations happening in the body. So I shifted my mindset from, I look ridiculous, to, I am building cardiovascular stamina. My lungs are literally increasing their capacity today.
That's a massive shift.
It was. The physical discomfort was exactly the same, but the emotional experience completely flipped. I actually started looking forward to the grind.
That is a profound everyday application of this. And if we look at the everyday physical culture of American life right now in 2026, this is highly relevant. Just look at the massive, inescapable explosion of local pickleball leagues across the country.
Oh my gosh, you literally cannot escape pickleball. It's everywhere.
It has completely democratized racket sports.
Huh.
But if you walk by a public court on a Saturday, you see both mindsets on raw display.
Really? How so?
Well, you see players who miss a shot and immediately throw their paddle, screaming in frustration, furious because their ego is bruised by failing at a supposedly simple game.
Yeah, the paddle throwers.
And on the next court, you see players who miss a shot, laugh, walk over to their partner to ask for advice on their backhand positioning, and they visibly improve their mechanics over the course of an hour. The game is exactly the same. The internal processing is entirely different.
That makes total sense. We see it in digital fitness too, I think.
Yes, consider the gamification of fitness via American health apps and wearables right now. Think about the Apple Watch rings or Strava.
Right.
The platforms that succeed long-term are the ones that foster a growth mindset, celebrating streaks, visualizing small incremental improvements in heart rate variability, or tracking load progression over time. They don't demand you look like an Olympian on day one.
Yeah.
They reward the process of adaptation.
That's a really good point.
Even in the fiercely competitive world of esports, the teams that dominate globally aren't just the ones with the fastest twitch reflexes. They're the teams that painfully review their losing match footage for hours, analyzing every micro decision to optimize their strategy, rather than just blaming bad luck or game lag.
It's all about embracing the grind as the goal itself. So for you listening to this, I want you to treat your next physical challenge, whether it's a brutal gym workout, a brisk walk, or an intramural softball game, purely as a growth opportunity. Focus entirely on progress, not perfection. And if you feel that familiar wave of embarrassment or discouragement hit when you aren't instantly good at it, use this mental trigger. What would a champion do right now? A champion wouldn't quit. A champion would figure out how to get 1% better. Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates as we continue our journey into Chapter 5, where we take these lessons straight into the boardroom.
Moving into Chapter 5, translating these mindset concepts from the playing field into professional settings and leadership is absolutely critical because the culture of any workplace is entirely downstream from the mindset of its leadership.
We spend a massive portion of our waking lives at work, and the difference between a good boss and a bad boss often feels like it comes down to exactly this: how they react to mistakes.
The contrast between fixed mindset leaders and growth mindset leaders is staggering, not just in terms of employee well-being, but in actual bottom-line innovation.
What does a fixed mindset leader look like in practice?
Let's examine the anatomy of a fixed mindset leader. They believe that talent is static. Therefore, their primary goal is to be perceived as the smartest person in the room at all times.
Oh, we've all had that boss.
They cultivate fear-based cultures. In these environments, hiding mistakes becomes the primary survival tactic for employees because mistakes are punished as signs of fundamental incompetence. The leader hoards power, surrounds themselves with agreeable sycophants who won't challenge their brilliance, and the company ultimately stagnates.
Why does it stagnate exactly?
Because genuine innovation requires massive risk, and risk requires the psychological safety to fail without being fired.
That sounds like a corporate nightmare, but it also describes a terrifying number of companies. So how does a growth mindset leader restructure that dynamic?
A growth mindset leader operates from a fundamentally different premise. They don't need to be the smartest person in the room. Their goal is to make the room smarter.
I love that phrase, make the room smarter.
Yeah. They build learning-focused, resilient teams. They openly discuss their own failures and knowledge gaps to set a precedent that mistakes are a necessary part of the iterative innovation process. Instead of hoarding geniuses and treating them like untouchable stars, they invest heavily in development, training, and cross-pollination of skills. They believe that with the right resources, clear feedback, and effort, their team's capacity can expand exponentially.
When I think about ambitious careers, the elephant in the room is always imposter syndrome.
Oh, absolutely.
That quiet, gnawing feeling that you are a fraud, that you somehow tricked the hiring manager, and that at any moment HR is going to walk in and escort you out of the building. I've thinked it. Everyone I know has felt it.
It's incredibly common.
So how does a growth mindset dismantle that terror of being found out in a high-stakes job? I mean, isn't fake it till you make it just a requirement of modern work?
Well, fake it till you make it is a survival mechanism born of a fixed mindset culture. Imposter syndrome itself is essentially a byproduct of fixed mindset thinking.
Wait, really? How so?
It relies on the underlying belief that you are supposed to possess a fixed amount of inherent brilliance to justify holding your role, and you secretly know you don't have it all figured out yet.
Right.
But a growth mindset completely neutralizes this terror. If you genuinely believe your job is to learn how to be great at your role, rather than to already be perfect at it, you mathematically cannot be an imposter.
Because you're transparent about learning.
Exactly. You are just a learner. If you encounter a problem you don't know how to solve, it's not a dark secret exposing you as a fraud. It's simply the next item on your professional curriculum.
Wow. You are just a learner. That is an incredibly liberating reframe, especially in the modern American workplace right now in 2026. The anxiety is palpable. We are navigating massive AI disruption in the U.S. job market, where entire skill sets are becoming obsolete overnight. The anxiety surrounding mid-career pivots and brutal performance reviews is just at an all-time high.
In an environment of rapid technological disruption, holding tightly to a fixed mindset is practically career suicide.
It really is.
Let's say you identify strongly as a data entry specialist. When an AI system automates data entry, your professional identity is destroyed. You feel obsolete. But if you identify as a lifelong learner who currently works with data, the AI isn't an existential threat. You simply pivot to learning how to manage, prompt, or audit the AI. Adaptability is the ultimate competitive advantage in 2026, and adaptability is synonymous with a growth mindset.
So listeners, here is your actionable takeaway for the office this week. In your next team meeting or your next self-review, Consciously center all your feedback around effort, strategies, and the trajectory of learning rather than innate ability. And I want you to introduce a simple leadership habit, whether you are the CEO or a junior associate. Immediately after a workplace setback or a project failure, be the first person in the room to ask, what specific data can we extract and learn from this? Change the temperature of the room from blame to curiosity. Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates as we continue our journey into Chapter 6, where we explore how mindset dictates our closest personal relationships.
Chapter 6 brings us into arguably the most intimate, complex, and sometimes most difficult territory. We are looking at growing together, how the unseen forces of mindsets operate in love, friendship, and family dynamics.
This is a fascinating pivot because we rarely think about mindset when we think about romance or friendship. We think about chemistry, shared interests, or just, vibes.
Right, the magical spark.
Yeah. But you're saying our core belief about intelligence and adaptability actually impacts how we love people.
It impacts it profoundly. It is the invisible architecture of relationship longevity. Let's examine how a fixed mindset approaches romantic partnership. If you have a fixed mindset, you believe the human traits are unchangeable.
Okay.
Therefore, you believe your partner is exactly who they are, you're exactly who you are, and the relationship itself has a fixed destiny. The prevailing cultural belief is, if it's true love, or if we are meant to be best friends, it shouldn't require hard work. We should just naturally click and understand each other perfectly.
Which sounds incredibly romantic right up until the moment you have your first massive argument about doing the dishes or managing finances.
Exactly the problem.
Mhm.
When inevitable friction happens, the fixed mindset panics. Because you believe traits cannot change, a single flaw in your partner or a single heated argument isn't viewed as a behavioral mistake. It's viewed as a permanent character defect.
Oh, I see.
You judge them harshly and comprehensively. The internal thought process spirals. I forgot to take out the trash. Therefore, they are an inherently selfish, inconsiderate person, and this relationship is fundamentally flawed. Conflicts are catastrophized into ultimate deal breakers.
I see this pattern everywhere. It's like comparing relationships to a fairy tale. In a fairy tale, which is basically the ultimate fixed mindset narrative of love, the prince and princess just meet, they are perfectly matched by destiny, and they ride off into the sunset.
Roll credits.
The movie ends before they have to navigate a mortgage or raise a toddler. No therapy required, no awkward, vulnerable conversations, but a growth mindset relationship is much more like building a house together from scratch.
I like that.
You buy a plot of land, you have to pour a foundation, you need different tools, you need immense patience, you are definitely going to get your hands dirty, and sometimes you accidentally hit a plumbing pipe and there's a huge mess.
Yeah.
But you don't burn the house down. You fix the pipe together.
That is a highly accurate and useful analogy. A growth mindset in a relationship fosters deep forgiveness and incredibly open communication. If you fundamentally believe people can grow and change, a flaw isn't a permanent stain on their soul. It's an area for development. A conflict isn't a sign that the relationship is over. It's an opportunity for deeper understanding and recalibration. You operate with a mutual collaborative desire to help each other improve. You become a team tackling a shared problem, rather than adversaries attacking each other's character.
If we frame this within the context of modern U.S. dating apps in 2026, it explains so much of the current cultural exhaustion. The fixed mindset is running rampant.
Oh, dating apps are practically built on the fixed mindset.
The entire UX architecture encourages us to swipe away at the very first sign of a perceived flaw. Oh, he likes a band I hate, swipe left, fundamentally incompatible. We treat human beings like consumer products that need to arrive flawless out of the Amazon box, ready to use.
And that commodification of human connection breeds immense, widespread loneliness. The paradox of infinite choice makes us completely intolerant of the friction required to build actual intimacy. And this extends far beyond dating, too.
Like with friendships.
Yes. Think about how we maintain complex family dynamics or long-distance friendships. As people naturally evolve through different life stages, a fixed mindset friendship will shatter when one person changes careers, has a child, or moves to a new city because the old static dynamic is broken.
Because they can't adapt to the new version of that person.
Exactly. A growth mindset friendship expects evolution. It asks, we're both changing. How do we adapt our communication style and expectations to stay close in this new phase of life?
It's about giving the people you love the grace to evolve and requiring them to give you that same grace. So the next time there's tension with someone close to you, a partner, a close friend, a parent, I want you to pause before you react defensively and ask yourself this specific question. How can we grow through this together? Turn the conflict into a bridge instead of a wall. And additionally, practice giving growth-oriented compliments to your loved ones. Instead of just saying, "You look great," or "You're so smart," say something like, "I really admire the patience you showed with the kids today," or "I love how hard you've been working on your mental health lately." Praise their effort. Please like, subscribe, and share for more updates as we continue our journey into Chapter 7, where we look at how to instill this in the next generation.
In Chapter 7, we transition seamlessly from adult relationships to the immense, terrifying responsibility of shaping the minds of the next generation. We are discussing raising growth-minded kids, and crucially, becoming a growth-minded individual yourself by healing your own inner child.
This is where the stakes feel the absolute highest. As a society, we pour so much anxious energy into our kids, wanting them to succeed, be happy, and avoid our mistakes. We desperately want to build their self-esteem, and traditionally, the way we thought we accomplished that was by constantly praising their intelligence.
And that brings us to one of the most profound, counterintuitive, and heavily researched discoveries in developmental psychology. We must delve deeply into the hidden danger of praise.
The danger of praise.
Yes. For decades, well-meaning parents, teachers, and guidance counselors have believed that telling a child, "You're so smart," or "You're a natural at math," builds a fortress of confidence. But the clinical research shows it actually drastically backfires, creating fragile, anxious learners.
Okay, let's unpack the actual mechanics of this completely. Why does telling a kid they are smart hurt them? That seems so counter to everything we've been taught. How does praise cause damage?
It hurts them because of the psychological burden we discussed earlier, but magnified exponentially by a child's highly impressionable, developing brain.
Yeah.
Let's look at Dr. Carol Dweck's famous puzzle studies.
Oh, the puzzle studies, right.
When a child aces a relatively easy puzzle, and the adult says, "Wow, you did that so fast, you are incredibly smart," the child internalizes two very specific lessons. First, that their worth and the adult's affection are tied directly to their innate intelligence. Second, that being smart means doing things quickly and flawlessly.
The speed and lack of effort become the proof of the intelligence.
Exactly. So what happens in the next phase of the study when you give that same child a much harder puzzle? They struggle. They can't do it quickly. They make mistakes. And because they have been implicitly taught that struggling means you aren't smart, they panic.
Oh, no.
The cognitive appraisal is one of threat. They feel they are losing the adult's approval. The research shows these children will actually refuse to attempt the harder puzzle, or they will literally lie and say they don't like puzzles anymore, just to avoid failing and losing the precious label of smart. By praising their innate intelligence, you have made them terrified of challenges. You've installed a fixed mindset operating system.
That is heartbreaking. To think that our attempts to build them up are actually building a cage around them, it really makes me reflect on my own upbringing. I was definitely a kid who received a lot of that "you're so smart, you're a gifted reader" praise.
And many of us did.
And I internalized it deeply. It became my entire identity. By the time I hit high school and encountered AP Calculus, where I wasn't naturally gifted and actually had to study, I completely folded. I didn't ask the teacher for help. I didn't form a study group. I didn't try harder. I just decided I was a words person and not a math person, and essentially gave up. I protected my ego by withdrawing effort.
That is textbook fixed mindset protection.
I look back now and wonder what I could have achieved if my resilience had been praised instead of my reading speed. It makes you realize that adults today have a lot of psychological work to do to effectively reparent our own fixed mindsets that were installed when we were 7 years old.
That vulnerability and self-reflection are exactly what is required to shift the paradigm. We cannot teach what we do not practice. Parents, teachers, and coaches can build true, bulletproof resilience by entirely shifting the target of their praise. Instead of praising the child's innate traits, you must praise the process. You praise the effort, the strategy, the intense focus, the perseverance through frustration, and the incremental improvement.
So instead of saying, "You're so smart," what is the actual script? What do you say?
You say, "I am so impressed by how hard you worked on that math problem. You tried 3 different strategies, you asked for help when you got stuck, and you stayed with it until you figured it out." That is what true learning looks like. You validate the struggle, not the ease. You teach them that the brain is a muscle that physically grows stronger when it encounters friction.
This is intensely relevant to current U.S. parenting trends right now. There is a massive rise in gentle parenting, which at its core focuses beautifully on emotional validation. But sometimes, in an effort to protect kids' feelings and prevent any distress, parents act as snowplows, shielding them from all struggle and friction.
Yeah, the snowplow parent.
This denies them the necessary repetitions to build resilience. We have intense nationwide debates around screen time limits, where kids are addicted to passive, instant gratification algorithmic feeds that require zero cognitive effort. And on the flip side of that coin, we have the crushing academic pressure placed on American high schoolers, where a single B on a transcript feels like an extinction-level event that ruins their chances at an Ivy League college. They're marinating in fixed mindset anxiety from all sides.
That's exactly why teaching them about neuroplasticity, teaching them that their brain is capable of changing itself through effort, is the greatest, most protective gift you can give them. It inoculates them against that performance anxiety. And as you brilliantly pointed out, we must apply this to ourselves.
Right.
Reparenting your inner child means catching yourself when you make a mistake at work, and that old voice says, "I'm so stupid," and consciously overriding it by saying, "That was an ineffective strategy. I will analyze the data and try a better one tomorrow."
So here is your challenge for the week. I want you to alter one piece of praise, whether you are giving it to a child, a direct report at work, or just to yourself in the mirror. Focus exclusively on the process and the effort, not the outcome or the innate talent. And if you have a family, or even just for your own personal journal, start a weekly ritual. Every Sunday night, ask, what did we learn this week? What mistake did we make that taught us something valuable? Normalize the struggle. Bring it out into the light. Before we hit our final chapter, please like, subscribe, and share for more updates as we continue our journey into Chapter 8, where we look at how to make these changes permanent.
We arrived at Chapter 8, your new mindset. This is the culmination of the journey, where we synthesize everything we've discussed into creating lasting cognitive change and real, sustainable success.
We've talked extensively about the theory, the workplace applications, relationships, and raising kids. But knowing about the growth mindset intellectually isn't the same as actually living it viscerally every day. How do we permanently shift from a fixed to a growth mindset and maintain it? Because let's be honest, old neural pathways die hard.
They do, and it takes time. But the most encouraging, objective, scientific fact we have on our side is neuroplasticity. We need to understand how this actually works.
Break it down for us.
When you embrace a challenge and struggle through it, your brain isn't just metaphorically growing, it is physically changing. Neurons that fire together wire together. As you practice a new skill, your brain wraps those neural pathways in a fatty substance called myelin, which acts like insulation on a copper wire, making the signal travel faster and more efficiently.
Like upgrading the hardware.
Exactly. The human brain physically changes its structural architecture based on how we use it, meaning profound change is entirely biologically possible at any age. You are never too old, and it is never too late to rewire your thinking. However, shifting mindsets isn't a one-time magic trick. You don't just listen to this discussion, nod your head, and permanently banish fixed mindset thoughts forever.
I really wish it were that easy. Just download the update and reboot.
We all do. But the reality of lasting transformation requires continuous conscious vigilance. We all have a fixed mindset persona living inside us. It's the voice of our deepest insecurities.
Right.
And that persona will always try to creep back into the driver's seat when we are exhausted, stressed, feeling defensive, or facing a massive, unprecedented challenge. The goal of this work isn't to kill that persona. That's impossible. The goal is to recognize it, name it, and consciously choose not to let it dictate your actions.
I deeply resonate with that. My own perspective has shifted so much just over the course of preparing for and having this conversation. I can actually feel the physical sensation now where my fixed mindset flares up.
Like a physical trigger.
Yeah. For example, when I get negative feedback on a creative project, my heart rate spikes, and my first instinct is still to get highly defensive and think, they just don't get my vision, they don't understand. But now I have this new cognitive tool. I can pause, take a breath, and say, wait, my fixed mindset persona is talking right now because my ego is bruised. What if the feedback is actually a valuable roadmap to make the project significantly better? It's a daily, hourly practice. How can individuals who are doing this intense internal work act as catalysts to create positive growth mindset ripples in their broader communities?
It starts by modeling the behavior transparently, which takes courage. When you are a leader, a parent, or a friend who openly says, I really struggled with this today, here is the miscalculation I made, and here is exactly what I learned from it, you instantly give everyone around you psychological permission to do the same.
You normalize the humanity.
You lower the defensive shields of an entire room. You change the culture from one of performance to one of development. And in the broader atmosphere of 2026, this is desperately needed. We're navigating massive economic shifts, rampant technological uncertainty with the integration of AI into daily life, and a social landscape that feels incredibly unpredictable in the U.S.
It feels like we are on a roller coaster in the dark sometimes. The ground is constantly moving.
Exactly. And when the external world is wildly unpredictable, a growth mindset is the ultimate internal anchor. If you believe your abilities are fixed, uncertainty is terrifying because you might not have the specific tools to survive what's coming, and you believe you can't acquire them.
But with a growth mindset.
But if you have an entrenched growth mindset, your fundamental baseline belief is, whatever comes, I have the capacity to learn how to handle it. It replaces paralyzing fear with active, resilient curiosity.
Whatever comes, I have the capacity to learn how to handle it. That might be the most comforting, empowering sentence I've heard all year. So, listener, we want you to leave this discussion armed with real, actionable tools. Your final takeaway is to create your own personalized growth mindset plan. I want you to choose one specific area of your life where you currently feel stuck. Maybe it's your fitness routine, a stagnant, frustrating project at work, or a difficult communication dynamic in a relationship. Commit to one small daily practice that focuses entirely on effort, not outcome, just 5 minutes a day. And develop one personalized reminder phrase to pull yourself out of a fixed mindset spiral when it inevitably hits. Something like, I am a learner, or this is just data, not my identity. Invite yourself to revisit these principles whenever you need a mental reset. You possess the neurological power to change how your mind operates.
As we wrap up this profound journey, there is one final important concept we need to leave you with to tie all of these threads together into a single provocative thought. We constantly hear the cultural advice to find your passion. But what if that phrase is actually a massive fixed mindset trap?
Think about it. What if passions aren't magically found fully formed, like a hidden treasure you just stumble upon if you're lucky? What if they are built, cultivated, and grown through intense effort, friction, and persistence? If you stop searching endlessly for what you are naturally meant to do and start building what you care about through dedication, what could you create tomorrow?
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
We deeply appreciate your time, your focus, and your curiosity. Remember, you are not a finished product. You are the architect of your own abilities. Keep building. We will see you next time.